For 40 years and counting, an incredible phenomena has been occurring in a remote village of Bosnia-Herzegovina, which may contain secrets that could change life as we know it. After hearing of a number of miracles from first-hand witnesses, I wonder if this could be a giant wake-up call for humanity. Considering once these secrets are revealed, it could be too late, this just might be worth taking a look into. I'm Shannon Kieselman, and since the day I discovered this place called Medjugorje, I haven't been able to take my mind off of it. Why doesn't everyone know about it? Well, join me as I bring real-life stories of miracles of Medjugorje and why this is a modern-day case for grace. Welcome back to Miracles of Medjugorje, a case for grace. I'm Shannon Gieselman. Today, I want to talk to you about the miracles and wonders of the statue of the risen Christ. Located in the heart of Medjugorje is a spiritually powerful place of healing and contemplation. The focal point is an enormous sculpture of the risen Christ made mostly of bronze and copper. Slovenian sculptor Andrea Adish, I might have messed that name up, donated to the Shrine of Medjugorje in 1998. After having it blessed by Pope John Paul II, it was installed on Easter Day. While named the Risen Christ, the intent of the sculpture was to merge the crucified with the risen Christ as one. It displays Jesus posed like the cross, yet he's resurrected because he's standing in triumph with his body imprint left on the ground. At close look, you can see the scripture of Psalm 138 is engraved on his loincloth. Mysteriously, in 2002, just a few years after the statue was erected, a trickling flow of water began seeping from the right knee of this sculpture that is very similar to tear-like liquid. On any given day, pilgrims can be seen lining up to get close to the statue, some with handkerchiefs in their hands, wiping the liquid oozing from just below the right knee. This phenomenon occurs in all kinds of weather, day and night. However, the speed of the oozing varies. Sometimes it takes just a few minutes before a single drop comes out, but other times the dripping is much faster. Many pilgrims treat this liquid as a miraculous substance, and claims of healing have been made. You can almost hear a pin drop as deep reverence and silence is maintained at all times around the statue. The parish of Medjugorje does not comment on the phenomenon or give any sort of official explanation. The risen Christ statue has been analyzed by qualified experts. A professor by the name of, and here, excuse me if this is wrong, Giulio Fanti, who is well known for his work on Shroud of Turin, observed the statue, and he found the liquid contains 99% water with traces of calcium, copper, iron, potassium, magnesium, sodium, sulfur, and zinc. Further assessment found that some drops of this liquid left to dry on a slide crystallize, and it doesn't appear to evaporate or freeze like normal water would. Of course, regardless of whatever the water consists of, what really matters is a person's faith. Just like when the lady touched Jesus's garment and he told her it was her faith that healed her. One of the common theories is that the statue is simply leaking due to condensation. With the upper half of the structure hollow and lower half solid, there are various micro cracks throughout the statue, and this would lead to one to assuming that the dripping is the result of condensation. However, there's approximately 1 quart of liquid substance leaked per day. Well, experts calculate that's about 33 times the amount that we would expect from normal condensation. It wasn't until an event that happened about 10 years after the initial weeping that left everyone perplexed. During a particularly significant rainy season in 2010, the leaking completely ceased for a full 3 weeks. Up until then, there had been times when it stopped flowing periodically, but only for a brief time. This situation rather squashed the theory most commonly explained away by skeptics that the statue was just filling up with water. Since then, the trickling has been flowing consistently and sometimes even occurs in both knees of the statue simultaneously. I personally had a conversation with a gentleman who was visiting with his family, and he told me of a rather unusual event. While gathered around the statue, everyone was focused on the droplets coming out of the knee, while his younger son spoke out and says, "Why is everyone looking down at the knee? Jesus is weeping tears from his eye." Everyone was stunned. Another story coming from a local guide tells of a mother who took her daughter, who was blind, to visit the statue. She put some of the water on her eyes, but by the time she returned to the hotel room, she started seeing some light. Her mom took her back and put more water on her eyes, and her vision was restored. Now, I realize this is third-party information, but there are over 1,000 documented and approved medical miracles that are stored in the archives of Medjugorje Parish. If anyone knows this little girl whose eyesight was healed, or if you are out there listening to this podcast yourself, I would love to highlight your story. I just can't believe that something like this isn't all over the news. This weeping statue phenomenon may seem highly unusual, but actually, there have been many accounts of weeping statues and icons and pictures throughout history of the Catholic Church. The weeping statue from Akita, Japan is one example of apparitions that have been approved by the church. In the late 80s, a victim soul, little Audrey Santos, also had leaking oil substance happen around her. And by the way, if you haven't heard of her, you should definitely look her story up. It's worthy of a separate podcast altogether, and it has ties to Medjugorje. But after a tragic accident left Audrey in a coma-like state for many years, countless witnesses and medical personnel who tended to her found that pictures and statues in her room would weep an oil-like substance. A biochemist was sent to test the oil from little Audrey's room, and the composition was found to be an unknown substance. A significant amount of miracles took place revolving around the oil as well as Audrey's presence. In a small home in Robstown, Texas, thousands have flocked to see a weeping picture of Jesus. The family opened up their home to accept visitors and refused to accept any monetary donations. All those who come seem to walk away believing a miracle is taking place. Also, look up the Californian soul. You'll find an incredible story of a visionary who receives messages from heaven. He and his wife have experienced a statue that has miraculously wept for a number of years, especially in the presence of priests or bishops who have visited their home. During prayer cenacles, a number of people have seen the statue move, smile, bow, etc. One priest even felt the statue turn to flesh as he touched Our Lady's cheek. It is believed this phenomenon is heaven's way of reaffirming the very supernatural nature by which the message to this Californian soul are transmitted and intended to be spread throughout the world. Disclaimer: I'm not endorsing these events, but rather just here to share what is out there. I'm sure there are some instances where these type of events turn out to be a hoax, but everyone should do their own research and use discernment. Among the many miracles that are associated with Medjugorje, several verbal testimonies and written statements have specifically occurred involving the risen Christ statue water. While the church has not given any word, it does leave freedom to the faithful to collect the water on cloths or souvenir handkerchiefs. One story was reported by a local tour guide in Medjugorje that there was a man who took a paper napkin, reached to take a drop of water from risen Christ statue. When he looked at his napkin, it was reported that the napkin was full of blood. At least 50 people witnessed it. Some screamed in fear, while others were convinced it was a miracle. In almost every store in Medjugorje, little prayer cloths can be purchased with various pictures of Our Lady and Jesus on them. People stand in line for a chance to wipe the liquid tears with the prayer cloths. Although I'm giving only a few examples of unexplainable events, the point is that such phenomena does happen without scientific explanation. For some, such happenings are laughable, but others, they are miraculous. It all comes down to doing your own research and using discernment. But to borrow a phrase from my friend Corey, if heaven is going to take the time to present a miracle on earth, I think it's important that we take the time to notice. Just to touch briefly on the concept of a prayer cloth and its biblical reference, in Acts 19:11 through 12, it speaks of how cloths or aprons and handkerchiefs were touched by Peter and Paul and taken back to the sick who were often cured of their ills. It says that God gave Paul the power to perform unusual miracles. When handkerchiefs or aprons that had merely touched his skin were placed on the sick people, they were healed of their diseases and evil spirits were expelled. Prayer cloths are sacramentals, and as in the case of all sacramentals, its power comes not from the sign or symbol itself, but by means of the power of prayer. In other words, prayer cloths are not to be used superstitiously as having self-contained power, but as focus points, funneling one's faith toward Jesus, just as, say, a flag is used as a focus point for patriotism. As with the use of sacraments, much depends on the faith and devotion of the person behind it. Thank you all for listening. And if you or someone you know has a story to share about Medjugorje, that's what this podcast is all about. I'm waiting to hear from you. So please reach out to me at miraclesofmedjugorje podcast@gmail.com. Thank you all and have a blessed day.